We're back at Ferris Border School in McAllen, Texas, and we have a new guest. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Jaeson Jones, a retired captain from the Texas Department of Public Safety's Intelligence and Counterterrorism Division. Today, I'm Newsmax's National Border Correspondent, and I'm the architect behind designating the Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations for the country.
So can you tell us why it's important to designate the Mexican drug cartels and other transnational criminal organizations as terrorist groups?
You bet. I put in one word: authorities. We, for 60 years, watched these cartels get completely out of control, going from organized crime into an insurgency, into terrorism, and into a parallel government. And what our nation was doing was leveraging the Department of Justice model to go after these cartels in a foreign country who had evolved into so hyper-violent networks, not only operating in Mexico and in the United States, which most Americans are told. They weren't told about how they were operating globally. Today, the Drug Enforcement Administration sees them in 65 nations. And now with the terrorism designation, what that has done is provided those authorities to be able to use the Department of Defense and do things that we were never able to traditionally do. And that includes not only full spectrum operations, but also allows for the whole Homeland Security enterprise, along with the intelligence apparatus, or tools of national power to truly be able to go after them, not only in Mexico, but globally.
Jason, we saw this incident recently with the boat that was hit by our people. What did you make of that and some of these politicians saying that, we should have apprehended them and taken them in? Talk about that scenario and how that affects how we're handling this.
You bet, Paul. What the folks first need to understand that is happening here is as we have shut down our southwest border and as we are working with the Mexican government to focus on the cartels, the South American cartels have risen. This is the story the American people haven't been told yet. The amount of cocaine right now flowing out of South America is unprecedented. We are seeing a tectonic shift in the production volume of cocaine out of South America. We've never seen anything like this. Now, let me validate that for a second. Operation Viper, 54-day operation in the Caribbean and in the Pacific Coast by U.S. Coast Guard and the Department of now what we call War, seized 76,140 pounds in 54 days alone of cocaine. Now, that's just the United States. If you look off the Pacific Coast, under the last 8 months of the Sheinbaum administration, they have seized a record-setting 46 tons of cocaine. Where I'm trying to go with this is this: as we took our eye off the ball on this hemisphere, when we began working the global war on terror, these cartels all the way to South America have risen. The problem is Americans finally are aware of the Mexican cartels, but they're not aware of what's been happening in South America. As you see the Maduro regime taking hits from President Trump, the administration, refusal, one, to take back Venezuelans, which is what's causing a lot of this pressure that Trump's applying, and two, the Cartel of the Suns, which is the Maduro regime, basically, who subsidize their operations off of cocaine shipments all over the world, including in the United States. That's why you see the force from the Maduro regime. But I want to be very clear here. As the media focuses on that, that is one piece of the problem. If you look at Ecuador, why Ecuador? It is now one of the largest, not only producers, but shippers of cocaine, not only to the United States and Mexico, but globally. If you're sitting in Europe right now, if you're sitting in New Zealand or you're sitting in Austria, you better wake up, because we are seeing things we've never seen before. And, we go back to the old Miami Vice days. Those of us that are a little old, we remember that, right? Let me tell you, this is nothing compared to what we're seeing in the Caribbean. So this is the beginning of major shifts to hold accountability to state actors and non-state actors all the way to South America. We're not playing games. You can send your dope where you want, but don't send it here. And I'll be very frank with you. The rise of these cartels into parallel governments that has not been communicated properly to the American people is why this has been allowed to happen.
Can you explain that for our viewers? Because I think a lot of people don't understand the cartels acting as parallel governments. It's not just infiltration into national governments and corruption. It's down at the level where they're doing things like providing sewerage services and cable television in villages, isn't it?
It is, and building hospitals and building roads and doing what governments are not doing. Therefore, the people begin to feel more comfort around them than they do their own governments. Look, at the end of the day, though, we have to recognize that massive shifts have taken place. And look, we all took our eye off the ball. After 9/11, We went overseas, and we did this for decades. But if you go back, and again, I'll go back to us older guys, right? We remember Grenada. We remember what that was about. We remember Panama and those issues. All had to do with state actors becoming, and these cartels becoming at the highest levels of these countries. And when we look to South America right now, it is a shit show, to be very frank with you. And we are dealing with a hemispheric crisis that hasn't yet been illuminated to the American people. This is exactly why Secretary Rubio last week, when he left President Sheinbaum, where did he go? He went to Ecuador. It's not just about Maduro. The problem is that the American people haven't been told. The other part of that is Canada's no, look, I love Canadians, hats off to you guys, but there's a lot of fentanyl labs up there now pushing fentanyl in the north. So when I say we have hemispherical issues that we have to deal with, the American public has to understand the why, so they can understand when you see ships being destroyed and being sunk, what's causing that. And to be very frank, whether it's a Republican or whether it's a Democrat, doesn't matter. The intelligence enterprise that collects this information is not communicating worth a shit to the American people. And look, I'm a very frank guy, right? Because we can't just be kind about this anymore. It's costing people's lives in the United States. And one thing to just point out, it's very important in my opinion. There is no terrorist organization in the world that has killed as many Americans as the cartels. The data validates that. So as we come back and we begin to look at what has taken place, and we begin to now take on new priorities, we're seeing that our South America has really imploded on us.
Jaeson, you mentioned Sheinbaum a couple times there. We've heard a lot about how the cartels in Mexico have their tentacles into the government there. Mm-hmm. How bad is that to your understanding? And if it is, how can we deal with the Mexican government as a partner to eradicate these cartels?
That's a great question. It's a great question. First, you need to know, and I can speak to this very well because I'm the only national reporter in the United States, in Mexico, or anywhere in the world to in bed with the Secretary of National Defense Forces under the Sheinbaum administration, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I just got back week before last. What President Sheinbaum is doing, first, this question is, I mean, we could cover this for an hour alone, but what you need to know is that they inherited a mess from the AMLO administration. And while in the beginning, we saw where President Sheinbaum and President Trump really kind of went at it about sovereignty and what we were and we're not going to do, what we now see is great work being done. Now, let me validate that with data. The 29 cartel capos that were brought into the United States, unprecedented. Those of us who are in law enforcement for 3 decades, like myself, never could get them to do this under prior presidents. Sheinbaum has done that. She also just brought in 26 more. Now, 1,192 labs seized of methamphetamine throughout the country of Mexico in the last 8 months. 26,000 arrests. This is hard data. They've dropped their homicide rate 25% in Mexico because prior administration wasn't doing a damn thing. So don't let anyone tell you for a second that we can't work with Mexico. We absolutely can. They're doing great things. Now, are they going to do what they want to do the way they want to do it? Absolutely. That's the way it works, right? It's their country. But we can build trust, and we're doing that, and move forward there. I will tell you, and I'll be very frank, I'm more concerned right now about our side screwing this up than I am Mexico. And what I mean by that is attachés that are assigned to Mexico City, within the FBI, within the agency, within U.S. Marshal Service, et cetera. These are key positions for operations. And if we don't have the right people in there, we'll make big mistakes. I'll give you a great example. Terry Cole, who runs the DEA, a friend of mine, I know him well. The other day he announced that DEA was going to be doing a new joint operation with Mexico. Well, they didn't get that approved. Now something went horribly wrong there. This is what I'm talking about. You can't come out as the United States, we're going to do something. Nobody coordinated with the highest levels of the Mexican government yet. Looked very bad on DEA. I love Terry. Love him. Great guy. I think somebody sold him. But those are the kind of things that I'm trying to tell you that I'm concerned about. I'm worried the lack of knowledge and understanding of how we can do this, moving the right people down there is a major concern of mine right now. Because I see a lot of openness from the Mexican government that we could be capitalizing on. Yeah, you're never going to get what you want. But you get some of it and you just keep moving forward. It's messy, man. 2 governments dealing with each other, doing things you don't want to do. It's not easy. It's messy. That's okay. As long as we get the job done. Who gives a shit how it's made? That's the way I look at it.
So we now have a president, I would say the president, who has taken border security most seriously since the Eisenhower administration. And the border's essentially sealed. So what else needs to be done to protect Americans from these kind of problems?
Sure. So when we talk about border security, first you got to give President Trump and his administration, Tom Homan, and CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott a lot of credit for what they've done. The data validates we are seeing unprecedented drops in people crossing that southwest border. Now, as that has happened, we've seen exactly what we know the cartels to do. We've seen more unmanned aerial vehicles crossing over. We see a return to the late 70s and 80s with small aircraft flying over our border, but also the waterways. This is why you see the Northcom Commander, General Guillot, moving destroyers into the Pacific and moving destroyers into the Gulf of America, which I love saying, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there. And shutting down those lanes because they see the adjustments that I'm talking to you guys about with the cocaine numbers coming our way. And if you're sitting at home and you're saying, Jason, I'll take cocaine over fentanyl any day, I'm with you. You and I are in the same boat. But you have to remember our U.S.-based street gangs are going to mix fentanyl into the cocaine. And so even though everyone may become addicted to coke, you're still going to be an opioid addict as well. And remember, I will say it again and again, that's poison, destroying not only lives but communities. So those are the really two big changes that are taking place right now.
You mentioned these volumes of cocaine coming over. Some people in this debate will tell you that it's an unwinnable war because the demand for the drugs in the U.S. is so strong that they're going to find a way to get it here one way or the other. But it seems like we've never had an administration that is this willing to think out of the box, to do things that go against maybe the way we've done it wrong in the past. What do you think is possible with that mindset? How much can we actually accomplish given that demand is on this side of the border, but we're willing to do maybe more than we've ever done before?
It's a great question. And I want everyone to know watching. The supply and demand discussion for, what has it been, man, 50 plus years, straight out lie to you straight out lie to you. What you're never told, and this is why I get so frustrated with all these people who come on national television, they talk about supply and demand. All of us went through, economics, and it makes sense, right? We hear it and we go, yeah, that makes sense, actually. But you know what they never tell you? Cocaine isn't produced in the United States. So they brought it here and got us addicted to it. They don't tell you that. Heroin. We don't have a lot of opium fields. I've looked. I don't see a lot of them. Oh, yeah, they bring it here and they got us addicted to it. Let me validate that, because we've been in a drug problem so long. Did we have a fentanyl crisis in this country? We didn't. You see, what you're not told, and this is where I get so frustrated with these agencies and these figureheads, you were not told how they brought it in, they give it to our addicts for free, and it spreads like a virus. Methamphetamine. Who owned methamphetamine? The bikers. The biker gangs in the United States owned methamphetamine. When Chapo Guzman took over in 2004, I was a meth agent, almost said addict, meth agent working undercover operations in Houston, Texas with the meth squad. It was a HIDTA group. That means high intensity drug trafficking area. And all of a sudden, overnight, we got Mexican meth all over the streets of Houston, Texas. And all the dope addicts are saying, hey, it tastes like shit, but it's free. They're giving it away. So they gave that to them and got them addicted to Mexican dope. The story you're not told, and look, if I come across harsh, I don't mean to, but I get so angry with false narratives. Look at our country. We lost 100,000 Americans a year. We've never been here. Families and communities destroyed. And I fought for 8 years against these idiots to get these cartels designated as terrorists, while we lost 100,000 Americans a year. How did that happen to us? How did we become so weak? So look, I have no problem with us sinking boats who want to send poison and kill our kids. I have no problem with it. Like, let it rip, tater chip, let's get after it. We can't be kind and gentle to these savages, because if you wonder where this ends, and I mean it, as somebody that has built programs to go after them, who has rescued migrants who are about to have their heads chopped off by them, these savages do not care about you and your families. And I'm not trying to be, can come across too aggressive. I'm being very open and honest that you are not told as Americans how this could have been solved a long time ago, and how bad it has become, and how countries are being taken over from it. If we do nothing, look at what happened to us already. We have no choice. And to those who have hurt so many, may God help them, because the world's best of the best are coming for them.
You've mentioned before about the declaring these groups as terrorist organizations. The average person might hear that and just think it's a rhetorical term, but it means something. Well, what does it mean?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it is about authorities. It is not about war. I want to say that again. It's about authorities, not about war. The DOJ model was never designed to take on the world's problem, Department of Justice. It was designed to enforce the rule of law here domestically. And if you go back historically, if you look at terrorist organizations from the Middle East, you look at 9/11, you look at the first World Trade Center attack, we tried a DOJ model. It has never worked. When will the lesson be learned? We tried it again with cartels for 50 plus years, and look at the monsters they became. What the terrorism designation does is it gives you three major components. First, you can't be a terrorist in the United States. I don't have to work a 2-year case. I can deport you, because what most Americans are not told, many of them are here illegally. Let me validate that. DEA just took down 600 across the country. Why could they do that? Because you can't be a terrorist in our nation. So it puts speed in our system, and it saves you, the taxpayer, billions of dollars in investigations. Second, this is not a U.S.-Mexico problem. Another thing the Americans haven't been told as well. This is a global problem. So we're limiting their mobility around the world, because now you can't fly and you can't go on ships. If you're going to go somewhere, you got to do it, under the cover, basically. So we're limiting global mobility. And then the third thing is, now all of you rotten lawyers that are out there, and I'm talking directly to you, who work for the Department of Justice, who work for the State Department, who work for the Department of War, who work for all these agencies who wouldn't allow anyone to do anything, you're out of the picture. Because now every T is crossed and every I is dotted. And the authorities that are needed for those who want to go out and get the job done can do it. This is how you win. So what we're doing is we're putting speed and capability into the system that didn't exist previously. And I'll say it again and again. It's not about war. It's about being able to do what needs to be done with full spectrum operations and full spectrum authorities. That's it. And it's working. Now for 8 years I was told, Jason, if you designate them as terrorists, you're going to see the mass migration of people into the United States. Boy, that's wrong. We're at the lowest numbers ever. Massive win. The second thing to that, what were we told? Oh, if you do, it's going to destroy trade with Mexico. That was a big one that was really holding it back. It really was. That was the big one. None of that has found to been true. Matter of fact, now things are starting to happen where communities can be safer. Look, I'm with you. I wish we could just do hugs and not bullets and life was perfect, but there are true savages in the world. And you're looking at somebody that has rescued migrants who are about to have their heads cut off by these savages. You're looking at someone who worked, the 300 men, women, and children of Allende, who were brutally killed and massacred, the 72 migrants of San Fernando, the 54 at Monterey. I could go on and on with how savagery the Zetas had become and the damage they caused to our own country and people they killed here. So, this is a good thing that has happened. We have a long way to go to clean it up, right? But I will say this. I talked to mothers and fathers all across this country, and I promised them we would get these cartels designated as terrorists, and the world's best of the best were coming for them. And those promises have been kept 8 years later.